If you're struggling to transform your body from something that's skinny fat to more lean, jacked and back in shape, I want to talk to you about the effectiveness of doing it in sprints. Making this little mindset switch for you is really going to accelerate the changes that you see in the mirror. So going back to a year or two ago when I was coaching clients on my one-to-one program, some of them would do really well, but some of them would struggle. Now, a lot of this is about making those long-term changes to your habits, to your routines, and just making something that is sustainable over time. And because of that, it can get a little bit like you're just going through the motions sometimes. And if you're not seeing those immediate kind of changes like every single week or as the months go on, like drastically, it can discourage you a little bit and make you think that you're doing the wrong things. So whilst my coaching and encouraging guys to transform their physique long term is all about setting you up so that it is not unsustainable. You're not doing things that you won't be able to continue in the months and years to come. Sometimes following this approach literally always isn't the best thing to do. And I discovered this last year when I brought in my new 8-week sprint program, Accelerate. This is a couple of levels below my one-to-one coaching in terms of how much I tailor it to individuals, how much it's of less personal coaching it is. It's more of sort of a group program, a group challenge, and therefore it's priced accordingly. It's like 99 quid for 8 weeks, which for 8 weeks of coaching, and there's a lot of personal elements in it, it's an absolute steal. And it really gives you an opportunity to dip your toe in the water and get an experience of what my coaching program is like before you would maybe feel like you could commit fully to my one-to-one program. Anyway, when I brought this in last year, it was really fucking successful. And the percentage of success of all my clients who came on board that program was incredibly high. We're talking like 85-90% of guys that came on board would see a significant visual transformation inside the 8 weeks. And it got me wondering, what am I maybe missing in my approach for my one-to-one clients? Even though it's a much higher service, a lot more support and accountability, what am I missing and what can I bring from my Accelerate program into my one-to-one program? And that's when I realized this whole short-term sprint method of doing things is really fucking effective. Especially for us guys, we like seeing results fast, but also we do like going a little bit all or nothing sometimes and a little bit too hard, too fast. But instead of that necessarily always being a bad thing, why don't you use that to your advantage? So Accelerate worked really well for a lot of my guys because not only was it like an 8-week intense sprint, it sets you up long term with the habits and routines and methods that we're using and bringing it into your lifestyle for good. The bit that's potentially a little bit unsustainable is just the intensity that you're going at it. Calorie deficit is a little bit bigger than you would typically do long term. Maybe the amount of workouts you're doing a week is just like one extra per week than you could maybe keep up for the months and years ahead. And potentially, because it's only like an 8-week sprint, you might say no to a lot more social situations than typically you would do in the long run. Because in your mind, you're counting down the weeks. You're like, right, 7 weeks to go, 6 weeks to go, 5 weeks to go. And whilst making you get in shape and keep that body transformation long term, it's not a good mindset to have forever. Doing that temporarily for 8 weeks so that you can really make some huge steps forward in a short amount of time, combined with a little bit of a break before you go hard again for another 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks. I realize this is actually a really good way to go, especially if you look at a little bit of like boring research and data and everything. Diets tend to be more successful when done aggressively. So you need to combine that short-term intensity with long-term sustainable habits. So that's what I started doing with my one-to-one clients. I used that Accelerate group program approach that I brought in last year, and I've combined that with my one-to-one clients, and now we do things in 6 weeks, 8 week, 10-week sprints. It's just tailored a lot more for the individual on my one-to-one program. That's the only difference. It's around their schedule, when they've next got a holiday coming up, what their whole sort of work-life balance looks like over the next couple of months. And if things line up well for that period of time, then we know we can go hard for a solid 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 7 weeks, 9 weeks, whatever it may be, and you can push really hard and maybe make a few extra sacrifices to just ramp up that intensity that little bit more. And because you're doing that, you're going to achieve a lot more in that same amount of time than if you were just taking the slow and steady approach. Then at the end of that sprint, you can have a little break. You can take your foot off the gas, you can chill out for a little bit, you can ease off like the vigilance and the strictness of like your calorie and food tracking. You can maybe just do 2 or 3 workouts a week instead of like religiously hitting that 4 a week. So you're rewarded with a little bit of downtime. And I think long term, that's a really good way of doing it. And it seems to work really, really well with a lot of my clients now that I brought it in over the last sort of 6 to 9 months. Because when they're rewarded with that downtime, which is usually planned for 2, 3 or 4 weeks, by the time they're about halfway through, they're ready to start the next sprint. Which means that their motivation is even higher than it was like if they were just doing 12 or 16 weeks of just gradual, steady progress. It was very, very easy for things to just sort of go through the motions, for the intensity to just sort of fade off as the weeks went by. So if you compare the two, if you go hard for 8 weeks and then have 4 weeks to chill, in that 8 weeks, you might take 10 steps forward. 10 steps forward over 12 weeks, 8 weeks plus 4 weeks. If you do 12 weeks of slow and steady, you might only take 5, 6, 7 steps forward. The intensity of that 8 weeks over the 12-week period, you get a much better net gain in terms of the amount of progress that you make. Anyway, that's something for you to think about, something that you can maybe incorporate into your sort of lifestyle, your workout and nutrition planning, how you're cycling your body transformation, you're cutting, your fat loss phases, your building phases throughout the year. Break it up into little 6, 8 week sprints. I think you'll be quite surprised just the amount of progress that you'll make in comparison to just doing it on the week by week basis, but not really having any sort of end date in sight. If you don't have anything to follow at all, I've got a 4-week free coaching program. I'll leave that in the description below. You can get your hands on that. Or if you'd like to know a little bit more about how my coaching programs work, whether it's my Accelerate, my one-to-one coaching, help you transform that body from that skinny fat physique that you might see in the mirror now to something a lot more lean, jacked, confident, back in shape. There's a little link below and you can just book a call in with me and we can just have a nice little casual chat. No pressure, no obligation, just laying all our cards out on the table and you can make an informed decision in your own time. Anyway, I hope this was useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe and all that YouTube stuff, and I'll see you in the next video.